Alright. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. As I always say, whoever is here tonight was written to be here tonight, and we're all blessed to be in this gathering together. So I congratulate you on making the effort to be here, and I apologise that we had such a late start. But what happens is all a learning experience is meant to be. So the topic tonight is what makes a successful woman. And I want it to be a little bit interactive. We don't have a lot of time now, that we've lost a bit of time. But I do require you to think about some of the things I'm saying. And I'm going to, if you don't willingly offer me answers, I might randomly pick some of you to give me answers. So just be prepared for that. Success is a term which can be looked at from different angles. We can look at it literally. If I were to ask you, and you're the audience, if I was to ask you, what's the meaning of success? I can see Fatima's thinking about it so deeply, so I might pick her in a second. What's the meaning of success? You can give a literal answer, as in you open the dictionary, what is the meaning of success? You could give an answer as in, what is society's definition? What's the cultural definition of success for a woman? And we're talking about in the society in which we live. Simon, you're offering me something already. She's brave.
Being on a good career path, like a successful career path that everyone acknowledges.
Okay, and so for a woman, society would hold having a good career as success. Right. So that's our cultural perspective of success for a woman. What's the actual definition, do you think, of success? Just the basic linguistic definition of success.
To be good at something.
To be good at something?
Reach your goals.
To reach your goals. You've been reading my slides, sister. Have you been cheating? Okay. So the definition of success, the literal meaning, is the accomplishment of an aim or a purpose. Okay? So if you have a goal and you achieve it, you're successful. Right? That's the literal meaning. The cultural meaning, which we're going to dig a bit deeper into, we're going to break down some of our understandings and our ideas that we probably don't even know we have about what it means to be a successful woman that we've inherited or that we have picked up just by living as women in the world, in the era that we live in the society that we live in. But before we get to that, I want you to have a think inside yourself, just for a moment, as to what is we said that success is when you have a goal and you achieve it. So I want you to think about what your main goal is in life. Just take a minute, you don't have to tell me, but I want you to think about that, because I want you to evaluate this at the end of my talk. I want you to re-look at the goals you have when we reach the end. Has anybody had a think about what their main goal is in life? What is it that you really want to achieve? What is it that you wouldn't want to leave this world without having achieved? I want you to think about that. Now this is a slightly different question. It's a slightly different question. It might be the same in some senses. But what is your purpose in life? So now you might have a goal. You might have a goal. I want to, before I die, I've got to be a doctor. I want it. That's what I want. That's my biggest goal in life. That's what I want. That's one thing. But why are you here? What is your purpose? This is another question. Just have a think about that. Do you have a feel that you have a purpose? Okay. Now, of course, I'm going to give you a verse from the Quran where our Creator says, وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. Now, we've all heard this verse before, and, you know, it's kind of a simple statement, but when you sit and think about it, it's pretty profound when you look at the language. I mean, God is saying, our Creator, the one who created us, is saying, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ, I didn't create al-jinnah, that is the spirit world, wal-insa, and that is and mankind, illa, except liya'budun, to worship God. Now that's just, could that be it? Is that it? Is that all? Did God create us like robots, like angels? We're just here to worship God, nothing more? Is that it? Well, that might seem very narrow if your understanding of worship is just bowing and, you know, giving charity and that sort of mechanical understanding of what worship is. In the Islamic religion, worship isn't limited to those things. Worship is anything you do in your life which is for the sake of the Creator. And that could be from just smiling at someone, being polite to someone, being kind to someone, helping someone, cooking a meal for your family. All of this, when it is done for the pleasure of God, it's worship. Now, you had a moment to think about what your main goal is in life, yes? Yes? You had a moment to think about your main goal in life? Yes? So put that in one side of your brain. You had a moment to think about what is your purpose in life? Okay. So does the goals that you have right now, the goals that you have in your life right now, the things you want to achieve, do they help you to reach your purpose? Do they help you to fulfill this purpose? Our purpose in life is to worship God. The goals we have, does that help me to achieve that purpose? And now again, I'm making a simple statement, but we're going to go deeper into this. Every aspect of our life should be refocused, it should be recalibrated, it should be renewed with one intention, and that is to please the one who created us. Does that make sense? Does that seem reasonable? That what we do in our life should be with the purpose of pleasing the one who created us? Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, depending on where you're coming from. But before we get to that, it's time I would like to deconstruct a few of the things that we as women are exposed to, our ways of thinking, the messages that we get from society that tell us to do certain things, to be a certain way, and really have a think about what those things are and what are the impact of those ideas on us as women. So, what does society expect of me as a woman? Okay, I want you to have a think about that. We live in the 21st century, it's 2018. What does society expect from you as a woman? What do you feel the expectations are on you from society? And society can even include, you know, your own family members, your parents, you know, mother, father, what do they expect from you? You know, wider society, people you know, people you associate with. What are the expectations on you as a woman? Can anybody offer me any answers to that question? Don't leave me hanging. Simon's going to help me again.
The good?
Oh, is she right? Yeah. Absolutely. Why do you think that? What makes you think that, Simon?
Cultural expectations.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be beautiful
But how do you know? I mean, you're saying that you have to be beautiful to be successful, and you're right. But how can you prove that to us? I mean, who said that?
They don't need to say it. It's just an unsaid expectation.
It's an unsaid expectation, but it's said in so many ways. How?
Magazines, TV.
Okay, so you can just walk basically in the street and you're going to have, or you can walk through the shopping centre and every billboard, every bit of advertising is a female and they look a certain way and they're a certain weight and they're a certain size and they have certain size lips and certain size breasts and they dress in a certain way. There's an expectation, right, in your face. And when you're a young person, as many of you are, and as I was, believe it or not, growing up being surrounded by those images and being surrounded by those not so hidden messages, and in our time, you know, it wasn't as bad as you guys have it, because now you just, you know, you go on social media and you just scroll Instagram and it's crazy messages coming at you all the time. You live in the era of Kim Kardashian, you poor things. I mean, at my time, we had, you know, I used to go down the shop with a little bit of pocket money and buy some of the latest magazines and look at the supermodels. That's what they were called in the dinosaur ages, you know, the supermodels. And I just used to study the looks of these people, you know, their weight and try and achieve it, the flawless skin, try and achieve that, spend all my money on makeup, you know, cover every blemish, every freckle, whatever. Have lashes a certain colour. I mean, hairstyle. What was the hairstyle of that? You know, dare I say, in the 80s or the 90s? You guys in the 2000s. You know, and oh, that's spooky. Welcome. So someone was getting a little hot. So, I mean, you know, it was interesting because I recall, and of course I wasn't raised as a Muslim. So I'm raised without that framework. I'm raised without that, any guidelines, any guidance about the dignity of a woman, a woman's, you know, purpose as a spiritual being, as a person who was, you know, had the autonomy to worship the Creator, all these other things which aren't really part of my talk today. But I didn't have that, although I was a believer in God, but missing so much information that I blindly went along with what society was, what was that word you used, Simon? It's kind of subliminally telling me, you know, that this was where happiness lies, right? Because naturally you think to yourself, if I could look like that, that equals happiness. Why? Because every man, every person that sees that beauty, that's what they're going to want, right? That's what people are going to want. They will employ you, they will promote you, and these are facts. This is how society operates, right? You get good jobs, you get fame, whatever it be. You get any guy of your choice. Well, I mean, we were very blind because you could probably do a thing. I can't tell you the famous so-called beautiful women of today, but at that time I could think that the most beautiful, I mean, Cindy Crawford was like one of the big supermodels of that time. These people could never, you know, Chrissy Taylor, Nikki Taylor, these people couldn't have a marriage that lasted. They couldn't find any guy that they wanted. They couldn't have love. And I think if you look at the famous young people of today, it's the same story. I mean, wasn't it Selena Gomez that had a breakdown the other week or something? You know, shame, because Justin Bieber got married to someone else. You know, after years of giving herself out there. I know you didn't know that. Sorry for telling you that. I've got teenagers. It's awful. But anyway, that's a point. How does society define a successful woman? Simon has just hit the nail on the head with one aspect. I've given you two, and that would be the wealth and the career, or the beauty, or sometimes both if you're lucky, if you've got the jackpot, right? So these things, according to society, that's where success lies, all right? And if you work in an industry like the industry that I work in, which is education, and you have parents coming from, dare I say, Muslim countries, and sit in front of you in parent-teacher meetings. Actually, I had one the other day. In this case, it was a boy, but it still is applicable, you know. The mother said to me, I want my son to be a doctor. And I looked at the boy and I said, so-and-so, do you want to be a doctor? And he said, no, not really. And, you know, I mean, this is the story of, well, why would you want your child to be something that they're not passionate about, that they don't want to be? You know, why? Because do you know how good that will look to our family and the people and someone that my son is a doctor? That's all that matters. Whether that child who's going to maybe live the next 30 or 40 years in that job for their parents is happy or not is irrelevant. It is about what people think. And I just want my sisters here tonight, all women, to think about how much of what you do and what you aspire to do is to fulfill or to impress the expectations of society or the people who are close to you. Have a think about it. Now, I mean, I just pulled out a few examples to illustrate, maybe not the best, but this is a quote here that says, paid work is a source of status, power, and opportunities. Okay, because we're going to talk a little bit about some of the aspects of womanhood that are really looked down upon by society, and have a critical look at that. But the message is, for us women, that is the status, the power, and the opening of opportunities for us. Wealth, I've just used good old Gina as an example. Some of you might not know her, but she's one of the wealthiest women in the world, and she's Australian. Extremely, extremely wealthy. She's got 4 kids. And, you know, I just want you to imagine having children, if you don't have kids, having children, having your own flesh and blood, holding them in your arms. As a mother, you know how much you love your kids. You know, right there. Even if they're annoying you, you love them. But you have a deep love for your children, as I'm sure Gina had. But with all the money in the world, basically her children today are in the middle of suing their mother for money. There's 1 out of the 4 that actually speaks to her. All the money in the world, but no family. No family. I just want to run through very briefly the importance of family in Islam. Something for our women to think about. Why is family so important? And the woman is in fact the center of the family, the center of the family unit. That's you, that's me, the center of the family unit. And family is so extremely important. I mean, I've got this prophetic statement here where Prophet Muhammad ﷺ speaks about the different responsibilities people have. The different responsibilities that have been given to different individuals within our society, right? And the Prophet, peace be upon him, describes everybody like a shepherd. Bit of an analogy that might not be so relatable today because we're not living in times of herding cattle, really. But the concept of a shepherd is a person who is responsible for keeping a flock of sheep without letting any of them go away or be harmed or escape or whatever, herding them together, getting them to go in one direction safely. So a leader, or the leader of people, is a guardian and is responsible for all the people they rule over. A man is the guardian of his family and he's responsible for them. a woman is the guardian of her husband's home and his children, and she's responsible for them. And the servant of a man is the guardian of the property of his master, and this is very applicable to the time, and in some countries they still have servants, but basically giving the responsibility that whatever role you have in life, you have to take responsibility, or you should take responsibility, and honor in that role that you have been given. Thanks. Now, I just want you to also think about this verse of the Quran where Allah says, "O mankind, be dutiful to your Lord who created you from a single person. And from him he created his wife, and from them both he created many men and women. And fear Allah." Actually, the Arabic word is not fear Allah. "And be conscious of Allah, through whom you demand your rights. And do not cut the relations of the womb." Now this verse here, "do not cut the relations of the womb," is telling you that family and the bonds of blood, the relations of the womb, as it were, is really important. I mean, we live in a society, and when I say society, I'm not picking on Australian society, I'm talking globally, because even the Muslim world has lost its concept in many ways of the importance of family, the importance of people honouring the roles that God has given them, like a mother to her children, for example. I mean, this is throughout the world. So when I say society, I'm actually talking very generally, globally. Think about the society that we live in. I run a program where I have young people volunteer to help with the gardening, for example, of elderly citizens in our local community in Kudal. And when I take these kids to go and volunteer, and they're just going to help with the gardens, because a lot of elderly citizens in our local community, in our society, no longer have the strength or the physical ability to take care of the home that they still live in. So they need help. Back in the day, actually, their own children would have helped them, or they would have been living with their kids. But these elderly people, most of them, are extremely lonely. And when the kids come to volunteer, they happily come outside of their front door. They're so overjoyed to see these children, to hear their voices, to hear people at their home. It's almost like visiting, but they're not visiting, you know, and to see these kids and to interact with them, to have some kind of interaction with somebody. Elderly citizens, elderly people in our society. One day, I was leaving work in Kudal, and I saw this elderly woman, and she had a metal walking frame, and she was walking, and she was doubled over in pain, and she was stopped in the middle of the street. And I was horrified. I thought, oh my gosh, this woman is in pain. So I pulled up my car, and I asked her if she needed help, and she said yes. She said that she had just had an operation a few days back. She was in a lot of pain. But she had ventured out of the nursing home to go to the shop in Belmont, and she'd forgotten where to catch her bus to get back to the nursing home. This is a woman who was very elderly. She was in a very frail condition. She was in pain, and she walked with a walking frame. She was catching a bus. Now, I said to her, please, let me take the frame, put it in my car, hop in the car. I will take you to your nursing home. You don't have to get on the bus. Oh, thank you so much. You're so kind. Where's your nursing home? She said, I can't remember exactly how to get there, but imagine this. She said, but if you go, I will direct you to my son's house, and from there I know how to get to the nursing home because it's just a couple of streets away from my son's house. I can take you there. I said, okay, great. She gave me directions, and we got to the son's house. And then she goes, okay, I'm fine now. I can tell you where to get to the nursing home. It's here and so on. I said, hang on a minute. Shouldn't I knock on the door and tell your son that you're okay? Or maybe that you're not okay, that you're in a bit of pain? Oh, no, I haven't seen my son in years. I said, but he lives down the road from your nursing home. Doesn't he visit you? Does he have kids? Yes, he has kids. they come maybe every couple of years, I might see them. I was horrified. This is somebody's mother. There's somebody's mother who gave birth to them, who raised them, who suffered for them, who sacrificed for them, somebody's mother. And he thought that he'd done such a good job of paying the bill to put her inside basically a hospital that babysits old people and just left her there. I was horrified. And the way this woman hugged me and cried and was so appreciative for the nothing that I had done. But to her, that was huge. But if that was our mothers in Islam, in our faith, I wouldn't hope to see the gates of heaven if I knew that my mother, who had an operation, who was elderly, who needed my support now, who was there when I was young and supported me, and I had done that. We couldn't imagine from this verse, right? We couldn't imagine doing such a thing. But it is, the Muslims today are also doing that. Believe it or not, I have been called to visit elderly Muslim patients in nursing homes who are passing away, who have no family willing to come and visit them in their dying hour. And that is the truth. So something's wrong with our understanding, with our priorities, and with our concepts of what is important. And this is what I want to emphasize to you today. And this is quite a blunt, quite a powerful statement. Quite a powerful prophetic statement that the person who breaks his family ties will not enter Jannah or heaven or paradise. That's huge. So in the society we live in today, I mean, I hear stories like, headlines like, son kills mother for taking away video game or mobile phone device. Have you seen things like that? Son kills mother for, not letting him have an extra bit of pizza or something crazy like that. Believe me, it happens. It's crazy. It's so crazy you can actually laugh because it's crazy, but it's so shockingly sad. We have people that hit their parents. We have young people that hit their parents, and I'm not generalizing that it's non-Muslims and we don't do that. I work with young people, and I've had mothers say, I've switched off the Wi-Fi because my child is addicted and all they do day and night is play games, and I switched it off and my son hit me. It happens. It is happening, and it is the truth. Some of you are parents and you relate. Some of you are young and you think, okay, yeah, I kind of think I saw something in the media about that. Or maybe I am a little bit tough with my parents. And you would be horrified to think that if you have children and you give birth to those kids, that one day they could turn around and hit you or disrespect you in such a way. But it is happening. It does happen. And until we change our whole outlook, and us as mothers are the ones who have the power to change that more than anyone, then this will carry on. So, wealth and career, we spoke about it. I'm going to bang on about it a little bit more. And I'm not anti-career, so don't get me wrong. But I am breaking something down today which I feel needs to be done. It needs to be done. I'm not anti-career. I'm a working mother of 6 children. 5 who are naturally mine and 1 is my guardian. And I work. But I hope you can hear what I'm saying. Well, along the way, you have seen successful people, right? Wealthy, famous, the definition of success, society's definition, right? And we have seen the end result of many of those cases, hopefully. To ask ourselves the question, is that the answer? Is that success? I also want you to think about the original question that I asked you, what is your main goal in life? And think about the word life itself. Is it eternal or temporary? Is life eternal or temporary? That's not even a, that's not even a hard question, is it? But the crazy thing is that we live here as though we're going to live on forever. And yet we are counting down the days until we leave. I feel myself approaching that time, and all of us are. And we don't know, actually. In reality, the scary thing is we don't know. Is it tomorrow? Is it next week? Is it next month? How many young people, how many people my age, how many people, get the news? What is it? 2 out of every 3 people will be diagnosed with cancer? Is that our statistics? Is that how 1 to 2/3 of our population will be wiped out? So let's do the numbers. I mean, out of everybody sitting here, are we all immune from terminal illness? Are we immune from death? No, we're not. Are we even immune from hopping in our car and somebody takes a wrong turn and then my time is finished right then and there with no preparation? Just some things to think about. When we set our goals in life, are we setting these long-term, grand goals? Or are we setting wise goals? Well, we've spoken about purpose, and I think that you could think a little bit about why are those people that have all that money, and they have fame, and they have external beauty, whether it's real or not is another issue, maybe another topic, but they have all that superficially. Why are they miserable? Why do they take tablets to fall asleep at night? Why are they on drugs? Why do they get drunk? What's wrong? What is missing? What is it that they are missing, do you think? I mean, a lot of you probably know this statement from Ibn al-Qayyim, but when I first read it many years ago, I thought, this is such a beautiful statement and so true, where he describes the heart, that in the heart there is a void, there's a gap that cannot be removed, that emptiness, it cannot be removed except with the company of Allah, the closeness to the one who created us. There's a gap, there's an emptiness in the heart that you will not fill without that companionship. And in it there is a sadness, a depression, a sadness that cannot be removed except with the happiness of knowing who He is, of knowing Allah, and being true to Him. And in it there is an emptiness that cannot be filled except with love for Him, and by turning to Him and always remembering Him. And if a person were given all of the world and what is in it, it wouldn't fill this emptiness. So you could have all the money, you could live in the biggest mansion, you could have the latest cars, you could have all the material possessions that you could imagine, and you could be miserable and empty and lonely and sad and depressed. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? Yes, you can. And that emptiness, and that satisfaction and that happiness that people are chasing in all these things, wealth and looks, and people are having cosmetic surgery and they're trying to achieve, where's that happiness at? I need to find the goal and I need to chase it. Is it the career? Is it the money? How much money in my bank account? Is it the clothing? Maybe I need more. Maybe I need to, before I was a Muslim, that was the thing. As soon as I got paid, I was down to the, down to the city, and new outfit. I couldn't wear the same outfit twice in a row because people had already seen me in that. Like, who the hell cares what people think? Because it's not going to make you happy, right? It is not. But you will keep chasing it. You will keep chasing it because you fail to see that we had one purpose. We had one purpose that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put us here. And we were meant to find Him. We were meant to find Him. And not, we're not going to find Him because your parents were Muslim or your parents were Christian or your parents were Jewish. Oh, you inherited some faith, or some label or whatever it is. You do a few rituals, you found God. No, not at all. Islam doesn't tell us to follow anything or anyone blindly. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't even want you to call yourself a Muslim if you're not sincere. La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in religion. You can't force somebody to believe in something. You can force somebody to do external actions. What is the good? It's like, what is the good in forcing somebody to do something and they hate you in reality? You force your kid to get your child to hug you and kiss you, but they hate you, for example. That sounds strange. But if you grew up in maybe the life that some of us have lived, where you have an abusive parent, or you have a violent parent, or you have somebody who's just horrible to you, and they say, come, give me a kiss right here. Is that sincere? Is that love? What is that? You force somebody to do actions. Allah doesn't want that. Allah doesn't want that from you. Allah doesn't want that from me. If you're living out your life doing actions to please somebody, and you don't believe it in your heart, you are wasting your time. And you are not being true to yourself. You are lying to yourself. And you're being the slave of somebody else anyhow. And Allah doesn't want us to be the slave of any of His creation. The highest thing you can be is the servant of Allah. Think about this. Allah created angels. What is their purpose? They worship Allah, they follow Allah's commands. That's why they're called angels. Every monotheistic religion believes in the angels. They are sinless. They don't sin. They don't steal. They don't kill. They don't follow their desires in any way. And then on the other end of the spectrum you have animals. What do? They don't make conscious choices at all. They just follow their desires. If they want to urinate, in the middle of the wherever, they'll do it. They want to defecate. If they want to go and have relations with one animal and then 5 minutes later another, they'll do it. They are purely creatures of desire and instinct. What are we? We're not angels and we're not animals. But if we don't use our intellect to obey the commands willingly of Allah and make that conscious choice, then we are doing nothing but following our desires. There are no limits, no rules, no boundaries, and we have that choice. We have free will. But we will be on the level of an animal with no intellect. And at the same time, we can never be sinless and perfect and always get it right. Otherwise, we would have been angels and we would have followed with no will of our own. We are unique creatures. Clearly, any intelligent person can see that we are not like the animals. They don't marry, they don't commit sin, they don't change their hairstyle, they don't, make conscious choices. It's clear, it's obvious. And we are certainly not angels. But if we strive as much as we can to fulfill the commandments of Allah, then we're certainly going to be at a higher level of the human species, right? So I think that would be a great aspiration. And thinking about where you're going to find your contentment and your strength, it is in that pursuit. Now, I also want women to think about a few other things. When we put wealth and career above motherhood, now again, I don't want anyone to misunderstand what I'm saying here. I'm not anti, a woman doing anything other than marrying and having children. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that motherhood has been lowered in the time that we're living in. And I'm here to put it back in its place. Because I know, and I became a Muslim at the age of 20, so I entered right at that stage where I was at uni, and I was pursuing my education, and I had all those expectations of society, of my parents, of whoever on my shoulders, that was the only, the only viable option for a woman. Study, 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 and become something, you know. So the idea of wanting to marry and have a family, you know, you keep questioning yourself as a woman, and think about why you do that. Because people will look down on you if you stay at home and have a family. Do you realize that? Because when I say to my students in high school, who wants to get married and have kids? You should see their faces get scrunched up. Like, that's like the worst thing you could possibly say. What an insult. I am gonna be whatever you're gonna be, right? And here's this crazy woman saying, what's wrong with getting married and having kids? You know? So I'm just trying to bring the balance back here. I'm not saying it's the only thing you should do. However, as Muslims, and this beautiful system of life that Allah has designed for us, based on everything that I've just said to you, I'm hoping that you will start to realize that there actually is no better system. Thinking about the elderly woman who was stuck in the middle of the street in pain, thinking about all of the elderly people that are left in loneliness, I want my sisters in Islam and my sisters in humanity to think about re-establishing the balance and being proud of what we can do as women. Men can't have children, thank God for that. We can, and we're quite good at it. We are actually designed in such a way that we are able to give a certain kind of nurturing, of care, of sacrifice to the next generation so that they will develop in a healthy and balanced and developmentally sound way. If we remove that gift or that role that we have, something really terrible starts to happen to society. Now, most of you probably say, well, look at her speaking, you know, she's done a doctorate and her education and a career and all this sorts of things. I actually want to let you know something. I didn't even study to be a teacher until after I had 4 children. 4 children. And the 5th one, well, I didn't know that she was coming. So it was a long time later on. Okay? So after I had 4 children, and when I was studying undergraduate studies, which I started before I was a Muslim, I always studied from home, and I always studied. It took me like 6 years or something to finish a 3-year degree, or 7 years or something. And the priority was always as a mother first. So if it meant that I couldn't go and finish that exam, I couldn't finish that unit this semester, I still had a goal. But I had my priorities in a certain order, and there was things that came first, and there were things that could wait. Now today we have young women that say, getting married and having children can wait, and the education and the career comes first. But if you do things with those priorities arranged like that, there are certain negative outcomes, and I need you to be aware of them. I'm not going to read through all of this, but you can have a glance and you can get a gist at the research, right? In terms of age, a lot of women don't realize that when they delay. Now, I'm not saying if you don't get married because the destiny was that you don't get married, who cares? There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. If you don't have children because destiny was that you don't have children, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't misunderstand me. What I'm talking about are the things which you have the power over, not the things which you don't. If you don't have power over that, Aisha, radiallahu anha, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, never had children. Never had a single child. And God knew that she was to be one of the greatest scholars of Islam. God knew that people would come to her constantly to learn the knowledge of Islam. She didn't have children. Allah had another purpose for her. But that wasn't a conscious choice. She didn't say, let me take a pill so that I never have children. As some people do today, right? Just keep it away from me, like having children is a curse. That's something to think about. Delaying for no reason means that you may have plans to get married one day, but you put another priority first, and when it came time for you to think to yourself that, hey, I want that companionship, I want to get married, I think that's important, it may be very, very difficult at that stage. Even in terms of having children, this whole idea, I'm going to get my bachelor's, and then I'm going to get my master's, and then I'm going to get my PhD, and then I might have children. I don't know if you guys are familiar with some of those women who are like 40, 50, famous women, you know, like Sonia Kruger or Nicole Kidman or whatever. You know, these people that put their career, they live the whole lifetime of their youth doing that, and then they realize, oh my God, you know, if I don't have children now, I may never have a child, right? And then they talk about their heartbreaking stories of fertility treatments and, you know, all these medical interventions and, you know, trying to have children at the age that 20 years ago our grandparents were having grandchildren. Now we see, you know, women pushing babies along who are 50. And you're wondering, is that the parent? Or is that the grandparent? I'm not saying that to be mean, okay? But if you intentionally, we're talking about intentionally delay having your family until you're at an age where basically you don't even have the energy or the connection with a young person to raise them as you would have when you were young, then that is a little bit selfish, and that's a bit of a mistake. It's a bit of a mistake. And then that child, by the time they're like 10 or 15, he needs to be pushing his parents in a wheelchair. This is the society, these are the choices society is making, and that they're convincing women to make. In fact, if women didn't have kids at all, and I can tell you this firsthand, I work as an advisor to the WA Police Commissioner. I have been invited to talk to women in the police force. I work in many different organisations, and I know from those women and from my own research that to be a woman in the modern world, in the workforce, there is a huge pressure on women that if they want to maintain their careers or they want to step up in their careers, then they have to basically act like men. So don't have kids, don't take time off, don't have a family. That will be looked down upon. There's a lot of pressure on women not to do that. And if they do fall pregnant or they do take maternity leave, within 6 weeks, that baby is in a childcare institution and they're back at work. They don't want to take that time off because they will be disadvantaged in their career. It's like, oh, you had 2 years off? Well, you're 2 years behind this guy who's now made it up the ranks, right? This is the equality in our society that doesn't value our role as women. My message to those police women was that the standard of being successful isn't being a man. You know, acting like a man doesn't make you fit the definition of being successful. It doesn't make you intelligent. And I'm not putting men down here, but, you know, I don't want to be a man. And I don't see my value in being more like a man that makes me, you know, I don't have to wear pants and a suit to be an intelligent being who makes a contribution. And I've proven that by being part of organizations that are predominantly men. I had a meeting just 2 days ago with the heads of the media, 7 West, West Australian, the Sunday Times, as the only Muslim woman in that gathering, speaking on behalf of women, speaking on behalf of the Muslim community as a whole. And I didn't have to go there in anything other than what I'm wearing right now because I do not feel deficient next to a man. I don't feel that I need to behave like one to make my contribution. And neither did Aisha radiallahu anha. When the male Sahaba were coming to learn from her, she covered her face. But they were learning from her. Allahu Akbar. They were learning from that woman. And she was clearly above them in her knowledge. We have fallen for some traps, okay, that tell us to change our nature and lose our femininity and lose our gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us and the primary responsibilities that we have that we spoke about in some of the first prophetic hadith that I spoke about, as in our responsibilities to our children, to our homes. I don't have to tell you either, and this is not a lecture about marriage, but I don't have to tell you either the multiple benefits in having a good companion. Not a bad one, but a good one is better than not having a companion. If I didn't have my spouse, subhanAllah, in my life, in this journey of life, I don't know where I would be. He is a gift from Allah. Now when I am weak, or when I am feeling weak or broken or confused about something, there is someone there whom I can trust like nobody else, who has my best interest at heart like nobody else. And it's such an important marriage, is such an important relationship if it is with the right intention. And we won't even speak about psychological and health aspects of that healthy halal relationship. There are bad marriages, don't get me wrong, and they're not healthy and they're not good at all, and you're better off without them. But when you meet someone who is not perfect, but they have the same goals in life and they're seeking to achieve that pleasure of the Creator as you are, then that bond that you have and that journey that you will share is irreplaceable. There are other things, and I can tell you as a working mother, that there are other things that are really a downside to feeling that you have to go out every day and earn $1. You cannot look after yourself and your health and things which you have every right to do in the same way that you can when you have the freedom from feeling obliged. There's a difference from working for the sake of God and making a contribution to society, and working because you feel you have to maintain a certain status and you're doing something which isn't pleasing to God anyway. So we spoke about that. And we spoke about the impact of our priorities on the next generation, on our children. And I won't go through that either, but there are serious developmental issues that happen when kids don't have maternal care. That is really important. The bondship between a mother and her child is essential for the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual development of children. So if you thought that, okay, I'll have kids and then I'll just pay someone to take care of them, then you need to come and sit with my sister-in-law who works for Childcare Centre to tell you the day in the life of a kid who gets dropped off to childcare. Now, I'm not saying that every person who uses a childcare centre is, a horrible mother. Sometimes we don't have choices. Sometimes there are bills that have to be paid, and there's a choice between being at home and loving my child and caring for them and teaching them and nurturing them and looking after them and their welfare and having a roof over your head. This is not a judgment by any means. But if you have a choice, don't say to yourself, people will look down on me if I'm just a stay-at-home mother. Because Islam honors women, believe it or not. Maybe there are Muslim societies that don't honor women, but they're not following Islam. Islam in the 7th century, look it up, in Arabia or even in Europe, women did not have rights. When Islam came, Allah gave them the right to inherit, the right to own property, the right to choose their spouse. There's no forced marriage in Islam. This is completely prohibited. The right to work, to keep her earnings that belong to her, and that she's not to be burdened with the responsibility of the financial requirements of the upkeep of the family. That is not her responsibility. Islam elevated women and honored the mother 4 times as much as the father, according to the prophetic statement, where the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said to one of the companions to keep good companionship with your mother 4 times above the father. And the Quran mentions the hardships that women go through in having their children and commands everyone to honor the womb that bore them. Mothers are, women are, daughters are honored in Islam. So we should be honored with the role and the status that Allah has given us. So I'm just going to skip through because I've actually really spoken about that. We didn't touch a lot upon the beauty. This is a quote that shows some research that success, as in material success, is connected to beauty. And this is exactly what Simon was saying in the beginning of the talk. But, you know, I want you to think about beauty. This lady here on the right was a very famous actress, very beautiful. But what time does to beauty makes you question? If you place all your importance on external beauty, really, this is life. If you never bothered about your internal soul, right? And that's how I was. Makeup, clothing, everything superficial. I didn't care about my mind and what contribution I could make to society with my mind at all. It was all external beauty. We were told that is the key to success. I think Ursula Andress, you really summed it up. This is the experience you'll go through. The women that their whole lives and career depended on their physical appearance. What will become of them when it's gone? And how devastating that must be. That when you pass by a mirror, you no longer recognize yourself. And if that's where all your importance was, then you have nothing. Then you have nothing in the end. Think about being this woman. Is her life over now? I think that's why she's smoking, right? This is horrific. This is a tragedy. What she had, her value is gone. Her value is gone. She's not worth anything according to society now. Will she play the lead role, do you think? Will she be the lead role in the next upcoming movie, do you think? Will they give her a few million so she can sell her body and her looks for a few years, and when they're gone, her value is gone, according to society. But according to Islam, if her honor was in her spiritual realm and her intellectual realm and in her contribution to the good of society for the sake of the Creator, she would be more valuable with her wisdom and her age than she would ever have been at that age. But she denied herself that honor and dignity because she was tricked by society. It said, come, come, we'll give you everything. And for a time, they thought they had it all. And how quickly that goes. And then we have the deception, of the times we're living in. Pure deception, young girls looking at Photoshop and, surgery and cosmetics, aspiring to be somebody that not even those people are. Not even they are who you think they are. We need to redefine beauty and believe in that. And believe in that. Because if I knew as a young woman growing up in the world that we live in today, where by the age of 19 I was bulimic, which meant that I sat with my friends at uni and I ate lunch and I ate whatever and I went in the bathroom and I made myself vomit because I was so afraid of gaining weight because of how people would judge me. Or how you quickly go in the bathroom and you fix your hair and you cover any little blemish on your face because people will judge you. That is not freedom. That is not freedom. That's not liberation. Liberation is having control over who sees your beauty. It's not for rent or hire or for sale. It's not for anybody who gives you nothing, perhaps criticism. So I throw back the question about your goals and your purpose. And lastly, and very simply, I want to share with you this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised for those people, those people I was speaking about whose priorities in life center around seeking the pleasure of the Creator and not anybody else. Those people are referred to in the Quran as al-mu'mineen wal-mu'minat, the true believing men and women. They have been made a promise by God. And we hear this, Jannatin tajri min tahtiha al-anhar, mansions and gardens under which rivers flow and all of these things. We think about this imaginary world. I mean, even if we had these things in this life, wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like to have, a mansion with beautiful gardens and rivers flowing? We'd like to have that even in this life, although it's temporary, right? But Allah says something, and when I was reading the Quran the other day, the little bit that comes after this part of the verse, where God says, yet Allah's pleasure, وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ أَكْبَرُ. Now this is such an interesting thing. The pleasure of God is greater than all that. As an achievement. So the palaces and the castles and the gardens and with rivers flowing and all this that the kings and the queens and the wealthy people of this world, they have, right? Even in the hereafter, which is eternal, if you were to have achieved that, the greatest thing that you could possibly achieve, my sisters, this is from Allah, is that وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, the pleasure of your Lord, the pleasure of God, the pleasure of God. ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. That is the supreme success. So that's the last thing I actually want to leave you with thinking about. As you go about your daily life, in your actions, in your choices, the choices you make, that essential goal is that you are striving. If you are striving to please Allah, you're striving to please God every day. And that means maybe, having patience with somebody who's annoying you. Having patience with somebody who's speaking badly about you. How do we know this is pleasing to God? Well, it's time you read the Quran and you will find these descriptions in there, but if not, then think about the life of the messenger of God, our best lived example, and the things people did to him. And those that threw the stones and made his legs bleed, and people who said he was mad, and people who said he was a magician, and nasty things. And he didn't want anything from them. They weren't to pay him for his message, for him to go and bring something that was against the whole culture of the society. That's where we are at now. Does this fit with the culture of society? Not even. Not even in a so-called religious society. You are considered, strange, backward, just, what's wrong with these people? They're so behind, even in the so-called Muslim world, or here, you are strange if you are one who is seeking to please God. And there is a hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that when Islam first came, it began as something strange. And in the end, it will again be something strange. But the difference between then and now is this. At that time, this religion, this faith was strange to people who didn't know anything about it. They weren't Muslim yet. They were pagan Arabs. It was strange. This religion today is strange even to the Muslims. They're not following it. They don't know much about it. And when you call people back to those morals and values that are our faith, it's just strange. You're just, extreme or something. You know what? Praying 5 times, dressing like that, really? So I just want to assure you that if this is your goal, and your goal is to please the Creator, ذَلِكَ هُوَ الْفَوْزُ الْعَظِيمُ. That is the supreme success. If you take your last breath and God is pleased with you, forget about everybody else, because they've got nothing to give you. And they can't help you when you are on your dying pillow. They can't save you, they can't give you anything, and you can't take your material possessions in the grave with you, and that's not going to help you. Your career's not going to help you. No one but Allah will help you. So isn't the relationship you have with Him the most important investment you could make? Thank you.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Subhanallah wa bihamdihi, subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Now I know we have kept you very long. I'm just going to say quickly, if anyone, maybe just 2 questions or 3 maximum, but if anyone has something, because I've spoken about a lot of things, and it may have created confusion about career or about, the faith or whatever it is, please feel free to ask now, and if we don't have a chance now, you could always send me a message or contact me later. But is there anybody who had, like a question that was sitting there and they wanted to know? Yes.
My question is, I think you should something about doing something willingly and not being forced to do it.
Yes.
But what do you think about doing something, like doing the action first and then working on the intention? Like for example, let's say you pray 5 times a day, or you want to pray 5 times a day, and you're doing it because maybe like your mom makes you do it, but not because you want to do it. And then gradually you learn that you want to do it yourself. Like, what do you think about that?
Yes, well, in that context, look, as a parent, we have to guide our children to what is going to benefit them, right? And at that time, they might not see the point or the benefit, but our job is still to guide them to it, right? We have that responsibility, yes. And until our children reach a certain age and they take responsibility for their own actions, then we will always ask them to do what is beneficial to them. Don't drink alcohol. Cover yourself modestly. Don't You know, don't lower yourself to people. Have, you know, confidence in yourself, and so on and so forth. You're gonna, you know, fast. Try it out. You know, fast. Okay, everybody, let's get up. We're fasting. And they might say, you know, I hate this. You know, like, I don't want to do this. You know, as young people do. But you might say, well, in my home, you know, we're seeking the pleasure of Allah, and these are the rules of the house, basically. So in a sense, it might be like you're forcing them for a while, but as you just said, a lot of young people start out in life with no understanding, but they're just doing it because my mum said so, right? But because they got that chance to experience that lifestyle, then sometimes later on or behind their parents' back, they try the other lifestyle, okay? The good thing about, you know, exposing your kids to, you know, I would say a pure, tranquil, moral lifestyle, and then making their own choices, is that oftentimes, and I know it's happened, thank God, you know, with my kids, is that they go, yeah, that's the life I want to live, and that's my choice. And they go off and they get married, and they live it, and they've been able to experience it. But if you simply don't, you know, bring order to your house and bring that and put in rules and things like that, they'll never get to experience the beauty of, you know, the actual living faith, you know. So, I mean, I do agree with you in that sense, if I've understood your question. If I have understood your question. And I've had a lot of people who were born as Muslims say, you know, when I was young, I used to wear my scarf and so on because my mum said I had to. But later in my life, I did it because I wanted to. You have to reach that stage where you're doing it because you want to. You can't forever live your life doing something for somebody else. You simply can't. And I would hope that, you know, a genuine heart who's basically they're just seeking the truth, they will find it and they will own it, you know. Are there any other questions? Yes.
What if you miss out on a specific period of your life? Is it still possible to go back and make those choices again? You know,
Thank you, Sana. That's a beautiful question. It's a beautiful question.
Suppose you're unwell, or you know you came to Islam late, or you know. So what are the options for you?
Yeah. It's really simple, because in our faith, until you have taken your last breath, you have that opportunity to connect with Allah. And Allah is Al-Ghafur, Al-Rahim. He is the one who, you know, is most merciful. He accepts the repentance. At whatever stage, no matter what you've done, there's no sin that's too much for him to forgive, or, you know, that you say to yourself, oh, I've just done really terrible things in my life, so I might as well just give up. There's no option of giving up, you know. You're looking towards eternity, you know, an abode in safety and security and tranquility, and we believe in hell. Most religions have made that a metaphorical thing now, you know, oh yeah, it says hell in the Bible, but, you know, it's not a real hell with fire and all. It's metaphorical. No, we believe in hell. So if those are your two options, you know, why would you ever want to give up? How? That's not even an option. You've made the worst damn mistakes ever. You get back up and you say, you know, Allah forgive me. And you try again. And tomorrow you'll fail. You will. That's our nature. We're designed to do that. We're designed to do that. Why? Allah loves the one who repents. Allah loves the one who comes back to him with humility in his heart and comes back and strives and tries even though he fails. That's the relationship between the Creator and the creation. Does that answer your question, sir? And one more, if anyone has one more. Yes. I do it every day. Go to work in a Muslim school, where, you know, we have, you know, our community is based, sort of constitutes over maybe 60, 70 different cultures, nationalities, walks of life, levels of education, all of it, right? And people often, our problem is ignorance. We have an abundance of access to information, but people are attracted to reading junk, just like they're attracted to eating junk food. You know, junk food destroys the body, and junk information destroys the soul and the mind. You know, and this is what we consume. So people rather just sit on Instagram and not think, but look and visually consume and follow and copy and reshape their identities and their, their whole morality based on what they're seeing all the time and these kind of messages that they're getting around them. So when somebody comes along who maybe has cut off a lot of those sources that are really affecting the majority, and they may sit and read, they're more enlightened, and so to the people they look strange, but to them they understand their choices and it makes perfect sense to you. You have to continue in that path. You have to remain very close to the path of knowledge. Never let that go away from you. Stay close to the Quran. You know, we have to pick it up every day. We have to keep reading. And it's amazing, as Allah says in the Quran, reminding is beneficial for the believers, because, you know, you pick it up today, you read something, you go, oh my God, you know, I'm so glad I read that, because I was starting to feel so disheartened and so weak, you know, just with the things happening around me, and, you know, people are doing all kinds of stuff, or, you know, lying or cheating or gossiping or speaking badly about me, all these things, and then you pick this up and read, and you hear Allah promising you, just be patient, and your reward is coming, you know, or, you know, deal with the foolish with kindness, you know, and so on. Be patient, and all these messages God has, you know, these reminders are essential. That's that relationship I spoke about, the emptiness in the heart, the connection. We don't connect with Allah through, you know, imaginary conversations. Some people think they talk to God and He talks to them, or they have visions, or in a sense, I'm not saying communicating with God through our prayers, our supplications, yes. But, you know, there are all kinds of superstition, you know, beliefs. We are rational. This is a rational faith. And the key communication we have with God is through His revelation. That was His communication to us. We have to access that to be close to Him. So there's no way of getting around that, you know. So continue with that, and continue to be reminded of the good news of what is to come. And also remind yourself of what people went through before you. You know, we could run away from it, we could isolate ourselves, we could do all of that. But in fact, being present and holding on to your identity and allowing the people around you to basically bear witness as to who you are. You know, today I stood here, I wore these clothes because God told me to, okay? And people said this and people said that, and they judged me. But a day will come. You know, people judged Mary, the mother of Jesus. She dressed like us, she was chaste, she stuck to the laws of God, but people said she was, you know, she did something and she had a child, right? What a horrible accusation for a person who's so close to God. What a thing to go through. What a shame to be put through. The mother of Jesus, peace be upon her, right? So what are we encountering? You know, a bit of talk. But it's what you know in here and what you keep in here. As long as you continue to strive, you will achieve it. You know, it's not going to be easy. It's not meant to be. Thank you.